Hello and welcome to another episode of Rugby TTL Podcast. This is part 2 of the Autumn Internationals discussion that we started. Managed to cover the Springboks, England, Scotland and Ireland. Polly, Keith, Adam, always a pleasure to have you on, gents.
It's fun to be here.
I think there's no point of pissing about. We may as well just start talking about how Wales did, shouldn't we really? We finished the crescendo at the end of it and led on to it. Let's start with the elephant in the room, shall we?
Well, I think we all discussed, didn't we? We all said, how many points is it going to be? And we all said somewhere around the 50-point mark. And laughing and jokingly in the text messages for that last game, it was like, at half time? And we weren't far off, to be fair, were we, with a scoreline prediction? But, you can finish that. But where do Wales feel that the Autumn Internationals has actually left them in terms of world rankings, in terms of what they've achieved? They finally managed to get a couple of wins under the belt. They beat Japan. And that was a big game as well. They needed to beat Japan, otherwise they would have been pushed down the rankings and the seedings for the World Cup draw and everything else like that. So, and it's pretty close. They would have fallen nearly into position 13th, ranked 13 in the world. So, in terms of Wales, you could call it actually a good Autumn Internationals, to be fair.
So the score lines they got a 28-52 defeat to Argentina. They won 24-23 in the last seconds against Japan. They then lost 52-26 to New Zealand. They then obviously got 73-0'd by the Springboks. However, as you said, I don't think against the teams they played, I don't think that is as bad as it could have been. If they'd lost to Japan, it would have been a further shit show than it needed to be. But they got that one done in a team in a similar sort of realm as them, really. And obviously, Japan went and then beat Georgia. So we know that roughly 12, 13, 14 are pretty much where they should be, really, in world rankings. I think they blooded a lot of players in, to be fair. I actually think there's a lot of negatives to take away from Wales just because it's Wales to start with. But I honestly think that they're actually getting players coming through. They've got a bigger issue coming up soon enough with it being reduced down to 2 regions, however that's going to look. Apparently Jack Morgan's now off, Dewey Lake's off, they're off to Gloucester. There's a mass exodus going where, here, there, where, everywhere. There's bigger issues in Wales than what that November International Series was.
Well, they're symptomatic of it, aren't they? It's been a long time coming. And like you say, if you frame it in the context of, Wales is, they're very much playing at the level, like you said, but it's very difficult to talk about them without taking the historical context of what they were. Look at the Grand Slams they've had, the great players they've had over the years. That's why we're talking about it. If this was like another nation ranked around where they are, probably wouldn't get much airtime, would it? I do find that last fixture bizarre, though, especially considering it was, all right, you've blooded in players, but I mean, that's demoralising and it's a bit embarrassing for the WRU.
It was about money, though.
Yeah.
It was purely about money. The Welsh RFU are bleeding money, and they've got one of the best stadiums in the world. I think arguably nobody can contemplate that. There's 80,000 people that turn up to Cardiff on a Saturday. They love going to the Millennium Stadium. The atmosphere in there is absolutely rocking. So the opportunity arose for them to sell out.
They didn't sell it out.
Stadium.
They didn't sell it out. They didn't sell out. They didn't sell the All Blacks out either. That's the issue.
That's incredible.
They did, and a lot of people said that's the systematic problem with Welsh rugby. These were planned when Wales were competitive. These fixtures haven't just pulled out of nowhere. These were planned 2-3 years ago before the shit show started. However, Welsh fans have given up to a certain extent and not even sold out going to be able to watch the All Blacks, going to be able to go watch the current Springboks. in their own backyard. There is something seriously wrong within Welsh rugby from top to bottom, and we've discussed it numerous times. But to try and keep this as brief as possible, that it's not been a terrible autumn internationals. I don't think.
I agree, and I think that they've highlighted a few players that have got potential to move forward.
Yeah.
Wales are in a position where they're going to have to start relaxing the way they do their caps and the way that they can play for the country. If you've only got two teams, you've effectively you're only picking from 2 squads of 30. So you have to be able to reach outside and reduce that cap limit. Lewis Rees-Zammit coming back was a big bonus, and he definitely showed that he's got some class in and amongst those Welsh players. And I think if you can get a couple of other players ticking alongside that, you've got the core of a really good team, because we know Jack Morgan's one of the, arguably one of the best sevens currently out there, especially in the Six Nations. You look at the Lions tour, and, I probably would have started him because he's the kind of seven that I like, or definitely coming off the bench.
Who's their 9 as well? The one that got injured on the
Marco Williams, and he would have started. I think he was in better form than Gibson Park and definitely better form than Alex Mitchell. He was Premiership Player of the Year last year, one of the best players in the Premiership at 9 for Gloucester. He's absolutely superb. So they've got some great players. It's just trying to get everything. Singing and dancing to make sure that they can get people in.
Completely agree. And then there was the incident.
What incident? So high profile.
I didn't hear anything about this. What happened?
Well,
I think what happened is someone said something naughty about someone else. One person didn't like the fact that they were losing 73-0, may have shot a glance or thrown some comments in regards to a big second row. The big second row grabbed his shirt. In that same process, his hand accidentally slipped up and got in his face. That's how I see it.
Happens to anyone.
I saw it as I saw it as his thumb went onto the lad's fucking spinal cord, but that's here by there. But we've obviously discussed this in the group chat as well, and like the ban and all these other bits. And then I saw his response on socials this week, which I think made it even worse. He's not come out looking any better. Like, how old was the lad that he sort of finger blasted to the fucking spinal cord as well? Like, come on. Like,
yeah. But he's an international rugby player, so the age is irrelevant, right?
No, but come on. Like, you got a behemoth of, 84-foot tall man, like the BFG trying to finger blast a fucking fairy. Like, what's going on? Like, let's put it into context. The only reason he didn't get more than a 12-week ban is because of his pretend bullshit fucking appeal that I've done it. It was fucking obvious, it's on video. And also because World Rugby fucked up and didn't have anything from 18 weeks to 208 weeks. That's the only reason he didn't get more of a ban. It was an 18-week ban minimum, every day of the week. Like, whether you appealed, and like as it got broken down, good behaviour and all that bullshit. Hold on, does that good behaviour get taken into a red card on the pitch? Why does it get taken into account afterwards? Bollocks. Absolute bollocks. That's what it is.
Unfortunately, that's the standard rules. If you looked at grassroots rugby now, and I've had to go through it in the last few years in terms of a player getting red carded. If a player gets red carded, the first thing you have to get them to do is apologise to the referee. You have to show remorse for whatever reason, whether you think you were right, whether you're wrong, whatever it is the first thing you need to do is you need to show remorse to the referee.
No.
Gives you an opportunity to at least go for when the club decides to give you a ban, and and what they propose to the RFU, it puts it in good stead. It says not only did you apologise to the other player, you apologetic to the referee. You understood what you did wasn't necessarily the right thing that happened. Whether you found yourself guilty or not, it made no odds. You just make that apology regardless, because guess what? It can reduce your ban. And anything to reduce your ban to get you back on the pitch is the key thing. And, whether you think he actually meant his heartfelt apology or his words or whatever way, is everything he's done is because guess what? He wants to be playing rugby come the summer next year, ready for the World Cup the following season, the following year. So,
but none of the games he's actually banned for a Springboks game. It's only for the Sharks. There's no issues there. There's no concern there because they are what they are. So there's no Springbok games missed. And then to allow a mitigation for a heartfelt apology and then come out with a social media post like that, surely you should be dragged back in and say, well, hold on, you bullshitted this. This is what you actually felt. We're actually going to put it back up to 18 weeks.
Yeah. How would you feel if he just got banned for Springboks for 12 games and but could play domestic rugby?
I agree. Like that, it happened on the international stage. It didn't happen on the club stage. This is where rugby's banning stuff is really, really backward thinking at times. It's ideal in or around an international period, but if it's an international period, it should start either just before. So say he's got a 12-week ban. That will start just before the next cycle of Springboks games. So he misses maybe his first or second, the 1 or 2 games beforehand for his club, that he'd technically be away on camp. And then it would be banned for the period during the Springboks. I don't think it needs to be banned for 12 weeks afterwards, including your club, because then he's done that perfectly timed, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the concept so we, at grassroots level, I don't know about you in Ireland, Keith, but at grassroots level is your 4-week ban starts from the first game, but it starts from the day after the red card, if you so wish, unless you're going to appeal. And the week's ban are actually associated to games.
Yeah, but they're not international games. That's the thing.
No,
It happens.
Are we harsh because we basically want to dent the way the Springboks can attack everything? So
I don't think losing him would dent it. That's the difference. It's not that. I think it's completely unjust in how it has been dealt with, because World Rugby have also highlighted that there's significant flaws in their own banning system because they don't know what the level of severity is, and there's loopholes been put in again.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to come in for a second here and just say, I made my feelings known in the group chat with regards to this, and a lot of the voicing of opinions around it was that, well, that's him going to be done now, because it was so grotesque for the moment, so unnecessary. We don't want to be seeing it. We don't want to be promoting it to the next generation to just be like, right, okay, well, do you know what? You can do it at the highest level and you're only going to get the bare minimum. And with regards prior discipline being okay, well, he has been red carded before at club level. So where do you start drawing the lines? And I said in the group chat saying well, World Rugby shit the bed because, as you said, Carl, they don't have the in-between of the bans. It goes between that 18-week to the 200-week to the maximum length. The fact that it's such a huge jump from the smallest mitigation to the largest. They tied their hands because they knew that if they went over that minimum amount, he was going to miss the World Cup, and they just didn't want to do that and take away from the spectacle of the World Cup and this South African team. And the team that has lost most from this incident in a nothing match at the end of the autumn internationals is the Sharks.
Agreed.
Yeah, because he's out for the rest of the season.
For a 73-0 victory over Wales. It was a nothing game to start with. And it's just...
It's mental, isn't it? From a game which we all discussed about, is there any need to play it? And we go from there. But I do think it's a great talking point, though. This is one of those things that if we don't start talking about it on this sort of platform and have those discussions, there's nothing's going to change at world level, international level rugby. We want to go to a grassroots game, and that's the sort of stuff that someone puts a finger in an eye. I don't know about you, Keith, or you, Carl, but I'm pretty confident it definitely gets to everyone's backs up, and
he wouldn't have a finger left.
Oh yeah,
he wouldn't have a finger left. That's for sure.
You talking about talking about it? Do you think it will elicit any change with them though? How often are they criticised, and how often do we see things actually change for the better when it comes to World Rugby? There's changes, but they seldom result in anything good. I don't think anything will come of it.
It won't come of it. It was that because until it happens again and it affects another couple of teams and becomes more of an issue that they've actually got to look at rebanding it. That's the only way anything gets changed, and that's no different in normal life, is it? Like if a car goes down a pothole 20 times, they might fill the pothole in, but if it's only one, it's not as much of a concern.
The only way something with regards to this type of incident would change is if a similar incident happened very closely after this ban going out, and then for it to possibly get the 200 week, and then for people to strike up and going, well, hold on a second here, we know your scorecard when it comes to marking it down and going from one to the other and being apologetic and all that bullshit, but like unless something happens a very similar time frame to cause an uproar from a fan base that has a good following behind it, then they're just going to continue with the way that they've set the laws.
Either that or someone gets blinded. I mean, let's say for one moment that the lads whose eye got poked, it's extreme. Let's say he blinded him.
Well, no, you look at Tom Aspinall.
Yeah.
He's going through it.
I was just going to say that.
Does that impact the result? Because based upon their criteria, no, it doesn't. Because he was shown to be apologetic, well, then it's still a 12-week ban.
But it's funny, though, because we talk about that, the tackle. If you take someone across the horizontal or if you take someone in the air, the severity of the action that occurs to the person and then when they hit the ground is taken into effect whether it's a red card or not, So you can't say, well, actually, the severity of the incident on the pitch, we can take that into account to increase it up to a red card. Then surely the severity of the actions of the individuals should be then taken into account to the ban, and maybe that's what they've done. Maybe they've seen it as a little bit of a, he was just trying to catch some mascara out the bottom of his eye, and that's what they've looked and go, oh, accidentally you've caught his eye. Sorry, there's your 12-week ban. Whereas, like you said, Carl, he's literally tried to do the old scorpion finishing move, trying to pull his spine out of it from the back of his head and gone, finish him.
Maybe we need to see Etzebeth do it to like Bill Beaumont or something to see the change. That might make a fucking change. But right, before we go rambling on into terrible worlds, another team that Wales obviously got beaten by was the All Blacks. However, I think they had a pretty terrible November internationals. Fixture list was obviously a 26-13 victory over Ireland, a 25-17 victory over Scotland that could have easily gone the opposite way. England obviously done the number on them 33-19, and then they obviously beat Wales at the end. I don't think they looked impressive in any of those.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And what I've been told from the people down under is that they were fully expecting to win every single one of their matches, and the pressure was already on the manager
Razor
going into the series, and they came out not looking very good, particularly in that Wales game. Wales pinpointed, and I know it's transition from we were just talking about where Wales could, potentially move forward tactically against New Zealand. They pinpointed that New Zealand have been notoriously poor under the high ball all series, so they just kept going for it, and New Zealand keep selecting players that are not good when they are pressured under the high ball, and New Zealand rugby at current standing is just nowhere near what we've seen over the last couple of decades.
Is it because of our expectations are just so immense for the All Blacks? Maybe is it one of those factors that they've either been the best team, the second best team in the world for so long that when they put in a subpar performance, which results don't, that game against England, we can look at that, and we talked about how good England were rather than talking that New Zealand were poor. But yeah, I watched a load of the commentary and some of the podcasts down there, and they were saying it was one of the poorest New Zealand touring sides that they've sent up, for a long time. And
thing is, though, I think there's such a depth of availability for the All Blacks as well. It's not just the squad they sent up. I think there's a lot of players that are available, that could be available, that could make them better. And I think there's players that have not been utilised. There's players injured. I don't think they've worked under Razor either. There's quite a few people that have done a few bits. One of the lads we've had on previously, Hugh Griffin, he went into it in detail, and they just don't seem to fit the Razor way of rugby. There's a way that New Zealand play and the All Blacks play, and then there's a way that Razor plays, and the two doesn't seem to want to match. And do you think? I think they had a similar issue when obviously there was that time, obviously after John Alumu and all of those players, there was a big lull in New Zealand rugby, weren't there? There was a lull period where everyone could beat them. Nobody was worried about them. And I think we're going back into that lull where nobody's actually scared of playing the All Blacks now.
When did they lose that air of invincibility? I was trying to think about it off the back of this conversation.
Mid to late 2000s, wasn't it? Was it sort of after? There was a lull, wasn't there, where they just
I mean this time around though, because
I would say after the third World Cup, so that when they were going for their third World Cup in a row, that was when they looked a lesser team. But we keep talking about it, and it's still there's a. When was the last time England beat New Zealand in England? And it's 13 years ago.
Yeah, 2012.
When was the last time Ireland beat New Zealand in Chicago? Wasn't it? Was it Chicago 2 years ago? Was that 2 years ago?
Yeah.
First one was 2018, wasn't it? And then they did it.
To be fair, that might have been the turning point. That might have been the invincibility point, because Ireland did make them look bang average, but then.
That was the best team in the world, though. It
was a hell of an Irish team, wasn't it?
Correct.
It was arguably the best team in the world at that current time.
Alongside then you got the Springboks, and then you've got, where did the New Zealand fit into that? Were they third best side? Were they fourth best side at the time? Has that invisibility cloak sort of slipped? Is there other nations that can actually realise there is weaknesses? As Keith was saying, under the high ball was a big weakness. Like Will Jordan is phenomenal, but can't catch sight. But he will run past 100 players and fucking blitz you all if you put him in his hand and he's off. He just finds space in the phone box with Gemma Collins, that bloke. But it's just.
I thought you said Jerry Collins then, but I realised you meant Gemma.
Now that man was one hell of a rugby player, by the way.
He was, yeah. They've got a lot to do to get ready for the World Cup. Do you think they're actually going to be? Obviously, the opening games against the Aussies, who will.
Oh wow, yeah! Because
what a cracker!
What a game that is!
I forgot we've actually had that since the last pod as well, haven't we?
Yeah. We've had the old crew.
Oh yeah.
It's. The thing with New Zealand when it comes to World Cups, even in the last World Cup, everyone was like, "This is the worst New Zealand team that we've seen for a while," and they just show up when it comes to the World Cup. We were like, right, we're finally going to break our quarterfinal curse. They're not playing well, and then they just come out and absolutely do us. So when it comes to New Zealand and World Cup. Look, anything's on the table.
Let's be honest, they were probably one red card away from winning it, weren't they? Look how close the scoreline was in the final.
They are tournament monsters because they've done it for so long. Same as Springboks have got themselves into a similar format. And that's probably the difference between them actually executing World Cups than the likes of France that everyone puts the title on every time. Yeah, they're going to do it. Same as Ireland was going to win it.
It's like Scotland and the Six Nations.
Yeah, agree. Well, Scotland, yeah, we've obviously Scotland to Scotland, but it's a crazy bubble out there at the minute. And New Zealand have got to probably really come away thinking we've got some graft to do to get ready for that, especially that opening game. Imagine having to go and play the Wallabies on the opening day of the World Cup and not getting just get upset there, because the rest of the group's not great. I think they got Chile and Hong Kong, China, aren't they? So they should be fine. But
and remember, if whoever loses that match has probably got England in the second round, or is it the quarterfinals? That's where they hit the England team. They're talking about the bottom half of the draw. Is favoured the Northern Hemisphere teams again. Because I don't know.
Don't get me onto the World Cup predictions, because when ATR said we were going out against Argentina and taking away the possibility of talking about an England-Ireland semi-final, I was like, what are you even doing, Sinir?
Old Schmidt, absolutely having a shocker there. He's obviously done that for a bit of a clickbait, I reckon.
Oh, for sure. He definitely got a couple of people, and a couple of the replies I were getting were that England were the team closest to South Africa currently, and I was just like, right, okay, I'm gonna leave that be.
Genuinely, I'm shocked that people are saying, do I think that they're the second best? Do you think that England team is the second best team in the world? I said, I don't know. It's always interesting. You don't know what South Africa are going to bring week in, week out. You watch that scrum dominance, and he's literally gone and put 145 kilo blokes in the scrum and gone, yeah, you can't run, you can't catch, but God, you can scrummage. And it's like, okay, well, how do you combat that then? And then you just make everyone, the opposition teams have got to turn around and go, It's like he's got all of the chips on a poker table. He's just trying to bully everyone into doing. He's just turned around and says, "You have to find something to beat me, whatever it is that you have to find to beat me. Then I'll just keep experimenting with different things." And the scrum was destroyed, and obviously they're looking at the law change and stuff like that. And is the scrum actually competitive in any way, shape, or form when the scrum half actually puts it at the second row's feet? When it's still supposed to be struck, the ball is still supposed to be.
Unfortunately, Polly, what you just said there, when you've got front rowers that are 140 kg, there's so much pressure in that front row that you can't hook anymore, because as soon as you lift your foot, you're dead. Yeah. Like, you're just being absolutely killed with the pressure coming the other way. So how are you going to combat like the physical aspect of the scrum has become so elevated that the hooking has to be obsolete for to stay up?
I think we should go back to a charging gauge. If you go back to like the 80s, where it's and it's literally they're running at each other and smashing into each other. It's that initial engagement that really counts, rather than sort of that applied pressure of have the referees holding the scrum in the right place really played into the team that's got the biggest pack, because it's more about the weight rather than the actual technique. It's a case of you get set right, crouch, bind, set, speed that up at touch a little bit more to remove the opportunity to get the team that's set. The team that gets set earlier and gets sets first wins that race. Then, is that a solution to be able to sort of create that competition back at the ruck? Because, you get to crouch, bind. Oh, wait a minute, my binds are not right. My binds are right. No, I've told you to bind, so you bind first time. As soon as I say it, as soon as you got less time. Right, engage. And people say, well, it's a law. We want to be we want to be set because we're about to smash heads into each other and go. But that's part of it. It's part of the technique, isn't it? It's kind of, getting into that point. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm never going to prop. I did it once and never again. So I don't want to be in that position, but, I don't know what the solution is. I don't think that there's a massive issue with what we've got currently, but
I think eventually they want rid of scrummaging. That's just how it is. That's the eventual. I think that's the eventual goal for World Rugby. With obviously all the other the bits going on are obviously safety, etc., etc. I think, as Keith has said, the size, the push, the pressure, everything like that, it will navigate towards scrums becoming extinct in some sort of format, I think.
We've already got rugby league though. I mean, to me, I think it'd be a sad day.
Yeah, that's
the real solution is make props play for 80 minutes. Get rid of 7 players off the bench. Get rid of that 7. You know that.
I've never seen Carl shake his head so quick in my life. He was like, "Nah, don't be saying that, buddy."
I'm trying to get him off the chat.
I was about to say,
I'm trying to remove him.
Make a prop play for 80 minutes, and guess what? You can't have a complete gym monkey. He's got to be able to run around and tackle.
Get this woke nonsense out of here, Carl.
But you've changed, Polly. You've changed.
Someone's got to bring a different perspective.
No, fucking bollocks. Absolute bollocks. The Wallabies then, before Polly gets completely removed. Lost to England.
Best team in the world.
Lost to England 25-7. Lost to Italy 26-19. Lost to Ireland 46-19, and then lost 48-33 to France.
Yeah, it's just a shambolic time for Australian rugby at the minute. You thought with the way they were coming back near the end of the Lions tour and the kind of bit of pride that they had, that, they've finally got a bit of bite, boot and bollocks and a bit of pride about themselves. But the autumn internationals, just, God, like, I actually, for the first time ever playing Australia, I wasn't even worried. I was like, this Australian team is so poor that I just expected to win for the first time ever, and every other time it was a competitive. I've been at the Ireland Australia matches plenty of times, and every single time it's a great showing. The fans, the Australians, come out in force, but the vibe around Australian rugby at the minute is in the dumps.
It did feel like there was some embers, as you say, though, Keith, wasn't it? Sort of towards the end of the Lions tour, they absolutely baptised South Africa in South Africa, didn't they? In the rugby championship, it did feel like sort of some of the embers were starting to, glow again, and they were going to get back. But like you say, it's just this. It was an absolute damp squib, and it was quite disappointing.
I think
really.
In the first half of the England game, they looked pretty decent as well. I thought there was a chance that they could do some. If they managed to peg it close enough in the first half. Second half, obviously England managed to go through the gears, get the job done. But like they were under. Who's that winger they've got? Is it Jorgensen or whatever?
Yeah, Jorgensen.
Yeah, he's good.
Don't forget that the Australian defence, England should have scored 3 more tries in the first 10 minutes.
Agreed, but we didn't.
I know. So you've got to give the Australians a little bit of credit in that point.
Exactly.
And defensively, they made some good decisions. In fact, the tackle that held Ben Earl up was one of the best tackles I've seen. It was absolutely brilliant. And I was just like, you can go back and show that and go, well, how do you stop someone from scoring a try that's got all of the momentum and all the weight? Is that you need to roll them onto their back so they can't. Well, it's not as easy as that. Well, you've got to try and somehow manage to manipulate the body to prevent the ball from being, from getting the ball down. So I don't know. I just think, the Australians have got 2 years to build to their home World Cup. And we've already said, haven't we, that opening game of the World Cup should be Australia, New Zealand. There's discussions about whether they make that the opening game of the World Cup, because I think, if you were an Australian, do you want to play that game first, or do you want to have a couple of warm up games before you go into that?
Playing Chile and playing Hong Kong, China is not a warm up game to play against the All Blacks. Get it done. Just get it out of the way, and then whether you've got it done or not. Because worst case, if they fuck up, they can still get the best finish third. So, if they know how the results are going, just get the All Blacks out of the way. What a way to... If World Rugby want to sell the game that we all love, put the biggest fucking game available on the first game of the World Cup in Australia.
I agree, yeah.
Put in Australia, All Blacks, first game, blockbuster. The rest of it will create itself, especially if that goes and becomes an absolute ding-dong of a game. that it will potentially will be, the atmosphere will grow, the buzz will grow, everyone will start buying into it more. Australia will bring players in. There's plenty of players from the NRL that are also sort of looking over the fence, making themselves potentially available for that season to play union and stuff like that. The Australian side that's there now will be completely different to what we see at the first game of the World Cup.
Well, the first thing that they should do is decide, is James O'Connor in or is he out? Because there's far too much rumbling every single time that the round of games come about. Is he going to be included? Is he not? Start with that, take that emphasis away from the team and focus on the group moving forward, because there's some really good individuals from that Australian team, some recently retired. And, they've got a really good coach there in Joe Schmidt. We've had fabulous years under him over the last decade. So while I say that currently there is like an air demise after this autumn internationals for Australian rugby, there are pillars. And as you say, they can dabble because they have such a big country and big love for sport over in Australia. They can pick a couple of players out that will perform come 2 years time.
I think Joe Schmidt's got to go. They can't stand him. I think he's already on his way out. Correct? I think he's already.
I think he is.
But
I thought he was off after the autumn internationals anyway.
I don't think it's the autumn internationals. I think he might be staying a bit longer, but he is departing. But I speak to a couple of Wallabies fans, and they can't stand him or what he's done to them. I know they're already going through a significant lull after the Eddie Jones.
When he was our manager, and the one thing that I really do wish that he embedded in that time that we currently have gone away from, and you highlighted during the last podcast, when it comes to our discipline, under Joe Schmidt, he had a very strict rule of do not give more than like 3 or 4 penalties away. He was so focused on discipline, and I just think that kind of structure isn't what Australian rugby wants and can abide to, and that's where the conflict of style of play comes into it.
Agreed. They love to play on the edge, and he's not that sort of manager. And I don't think they've got the players that can work to that sort of structure. Like Christ, Michael Hooper, for how many years, how many times was he running on the edge? But look, when he was allowed to do what he did, he done it fucking exceptionally well. Pocock as well. Those similar sort of players. They've bred those sort of players that will run the risk around the breakdown and physically try and dominate around it. And I think they've got a similar sort of players at the minute. Obviously, that Harry Potter was the lad on the wing who done the number on.
He's a wizard.
He is a wizard, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry.
But he was the one that done Benell. He flipped him, got the try, they've got some pivotal bits. They've obviously lost Nick White at 9, but the other lad that plays 9 looked pretty decent. The one that come off the bench in the Lions, on the couple of the Lions games I saw, he looked pretty decent. I think he got crocked though in the Lions tour. So whether they got players out, I think it's just is it Ed Med? No, he's the 10. They got
Thomas.
Something like that. They had that lad, didn't they, who looked electric in the Lions tour and then got crocked. So I think they've got some players to come in. It was an abysmal autumn internationals. Is probably the verdict.
I think writing Australia off in Australia 2 years before before a ball's been kicked is you're a brave man. I think you can
write them off now. You can write them off in their current format.
Yeah. But I think to say in 2 years' time, where will they be for, building and, don't forget that everyone's budgets all of a sudden start to go up when there's a World Cup coming up. And, the problem is that there's a South African team that are trying to go for that third World Cup, and a third on the bounce. And as he gets that, he's already cemented himself into rugby greatness. But,
he's staying till 2031 now, and he's just signed his contract as well, has he?
So for the next World Cup post it. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting, and we look at 2 years ahead, and you think that far ahead, and you're like, how come we're still, why are we talking about the World Cup cycle so much when actually, realistically, we should be talking about Six Nations. We should be talking about that opening game of that Six Nations next year.
I think there's another episode for that, Paul. I think we can get around to that. That's gonna be a banger alongside our fantasy league set up again. I think we're gonna have an absolute blinder with that one this time round.
Already rubbing my hands here, boys. Cannot wait.
And I think we need to probably look at doing a World Cup draw response as well from left to right. I think that'd be good for us to sit down. We've got three nations left though, Paul. Three nations left.
All right, sorry, I'll shut up then.
So we've got 3 left to get out of the way. We've got France, we've got Argentina, and then we've got Italy. Which do we go? Where do we go? I think we jump to Italy quickly first, because that will probably be the quickest one to converse around. So Italy, we had the victory over Australia, 26-19. We then had a 32-14 defeat to South Africa in Italy. And then we had a 34-19 victory over a Chile team that only travelled for one game, which they took off Samoa, because Samoa obviously had to go to the World Cup qualifiers. So Chile put their hands up, took that one. Similar as Tonga, just fun facts here. Tonga only had one autumn international because they cancelled the others because they couldn't financially do it. But it was lucrative enough for them to go to Murrayfield to play Scotland. Italy with 2 victories and a defeat to South Africa, which was only 14-32. I think it was.
I think that Italian team have got a lot better though, haven't they? I think we constantly write them off in the Six Nations, and then we talk them up. We talk them up before the Six Nations, and then they fortunately I think they're in a position where they're not the ones fighting for that playoff with Georgia for the into the Rugby Championship. Wales are currently sitting in that slot, so Italian rugby is moving forward. They finally got some found some foreign-born nationals, and then bring them in and get them to play. And if that's what it takes to sort of compete on that world stage, then fair play. And if they can afford to do it and they can pay their players, then that's absolutely superb. Beating Australia at home, absolutely brilliant. To only lose by 8 points to the second best team in the world. That's the South African team with 14 players, remember?
18 points.
Was it 18? I thought you said 40, 32.
No, 14, 1-4.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry, my bad, yeah. But 14. Even then, you look, and remember that South Africa played with 14 men for 70 minutes or whatever it was.
Correct. I've always waxed lyrical about Italy for a while. I think they've got exceptionally good players. The top 14, obviously the ones in the URC, the players that are also getting blooded in the Prem has been massive. There's a massive development model underneath in Italy. They're under 20s have got development pathways all the way through. Their under 20s are probably one of the better under 20 teams out there at the minute. It's just they always seem to do a France is probably the easiest way that I'll put it. They could win more, but they also shoot themselves in their own foot too often. But I think on a whole, this was a positive autumn international. Okay, they probably should have beaten Chile a little bit more convincingly. Obviously, Chile travelling over for one game, Italy off the back of 2 other games, keeping South Africa within that and doing Australia. I don't think they could be happier, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they probably got the results that they were expecting to get, and I think they blooded a lot of players against that Chile team as well, didn't they? They played some. I don't think it was like a full blown first 15 that they put out. So
no.
Those are the perfect opportunities. We talked about that, didn't we? When we talked about Ireland A going over to play Spain, and we have to. teams have to give these players opportunities to play the top level of rugby. And, although Chile, where they ranked sort of, 16th, 17th in the world, something like
that? Yeah, about 17th, I think, now at the minute, yeah.
But we can see that's where the gulf sort of sits. So, good Six Nations, good autumn internationals for them.
Yeah, I think they're an exciting side. Great to go and watch rugby in Rome and Italy. They did one at the Allianz in Turin as well, at Juventus Stadium. So it's good for them to be able to get it around Italy. But yeah, I love watching rugby in Italy.
Yeah, I have the same sentiment as well. Like, they have some really exciting players with Monty Ione and Simone Gessi and Pozo. Yeah. Like, they've got some really, really, like, individual flair when it comes to that back line, that when you're watching them, you're like, well, what are they going to do? You just know they have something in their locker, and when it clicks, it's great to watch. They scored one of the best tries of the whole autumn internationals, and look, I think it's going back a few years. The groundwork that Conor O'Shea put in really seems to have put the foundations there for the current Italian standing, because I remember I loved going to watch Ireland versus Italy just on the basis that Parise, like, they were a one-man team for so many years, and he was such a phenomenal forward that you were just like, right, okay. And he'd score a try, and that would be like, the whole stadium would applaud him, because you're like, right, you're doing the work of 14 other men out here today. So to see the Italians start to create a group that everyone goes from, right, instead of the Six Nations, and spoiler alert, that years ago, it used to be, right, what are Italy doing in the Six Nations? Like, they're finishing bottom every single year, duck eggs, to go and, right, well, they're creeping up the table here. Now, I know that corresponds with other teams not performing, but they are worth their weight when it comes to being in that tournament.
Exactly, 100%. I think they've earned their stripes now, and it's now, how do they get to that next level? Is there a way for them to carry on? And again, it comes back to the conversation of, do they need an Italy A side? But then they're talking about Italy A team would be looked to be joined into the Rugby Europe model so that they could get more game time. That's a whole new conversation on top as well. So Italy, good autumn internationals, I think will probably be fair to say. We've then got France and Argentina then. I think we'll go with Argentina for this one now.
Superb.
They beat Wales 28-52. They beat Scotland 24-33 after flip reversing 24-0 down at half time or whatever it was. They obviously lost to England 27-23, but could have easily won that if the game had gone on a couple more seconds. Off the back of what was also a very testing but successful rugby championship. A lot of players have come across from Super Rugby Americas, actually playing within their own divisions, scouted and signed up into the Prem, or gone to Super Rugby down in down, I think Western Force. Is that Australia or is that New Zealand? Well, Australia, Western Force.
Yeah.
So one of the lads, that 9, the Montoya, he's gone there as well. So I think in 2 years' time, we're potentially looking at one of the dark horses for the World Cup.
They've proven that they can beat, pretty much everyone. Southern Hemisphere. They could definitely come away and play some superb rugby. Watching them play rugby is like going back to watching the old All Blacks, the way that they want to get the ball around, they want to get it moving, and they keep it alive. It's like, they're a threat to everywhere on the park. It's like when I was at that England game, and genuinely at one point I was like, oh, the game's done. And next thing you know, Argentina have got the ball in their own 22. And I'm like, hang on a minute. How all of a sudden is it now in our 22 and they're about to, and they definitely had the opportunity to win that game. And I think, that goes to show that you got to keep fighting for it. And they proved it the week before when they were, losing at half time or losing to Scotland, and then they come back with one of the, superb second half performances that you can sort of put on paper. Definitely, they are. That's why they're fifth. They're ranked fifth in the world. They're absolutely brilliant, and hopefully they'll just keep developing. It's taken 15, 20 years for Argentina to really sort of step itself up, but they've been close and close and close, and now I think they really start to show their rugby prowess. And they've got a great league that's going on in the structure in their country. They've got great support behind them. They've got international support they're allowing their players to go some different places. It's almost like everything that's been put in place over the last 20 years in Argentina is just coming to fruition now, which is superb. And I think the next thing really for us to happen is to see a World Cup in Argentina.
Well, yeah, we had Lucho had Agustin Pichot on the episode, and yeah, that got discussed. We know there's a lot of political things that are stopping that, but I think that is naturally got to be the next step. Super Rugby Americas is probably the perfect blueprint for anyone that wants to grow and consistently grow rugby within nations as well at the minute. Like, they've just gone up to the 8th franchise in 6 seasons, and everyone's competitive. Players are getting scouted, going and playing in bigger leagues, Prem, and there's still a conveyor belt of players coming underneath. And I think to be able to have Santi Carreras on the bench and then bring him on and do what he does, they've just got one hell of a team, and they've got some players coming through. And we even saw the Pumas 15, where they obviously got to play Munster, and they also played the Bristol Bears and did exceptional things against both of those sides as well. Like, Munster were no mugs, and obviously Bristol Bears played a younger side than planned, but there was still moments of brilliance there for the future of the Pumas as well. So I can't wait to see where that comes. And I honestly think they're potentially the dark horses of the World Cup. How that goes, I don't know. I don't think they beat Ireland on the day, but if it's past the quarterfinals, then yeah, they probably will. But it's that's just Ireland being Ireland. But
that was a strategic call from my side, Carl. Just so you know, it's like they've got to, we got to wait and see how everything unfolds. A lot depends on if we beat Scotland in that group stage, but everything is lining up to look like it's going to Ireland versus Argentina once again. And just to double down on that point, we didn't even talk the very first match at the Lions store. Yeah, they beat the Lions. Yeah, in the Aviva. They put on a show that day. They were just phenomenal. Unbelievable. 28-24, I think was. But yeah, Contapomi is doing a brilliant job there at the minute. And I grew up going to the old Lansdowne, watching Contapomi play for Leinster, and he was one of my favourite players. And to see him go from being one of my favourite fly halves to being the coach of such an exciting Argentina team is phenomenal for all of world rugby, because we definitely need that. Because there's very similar talking points when we've just transitioned from talking about how Italy are coming up at the moment to the way that Argentina over the last number of years, when they got put into the Tri-Nations and they were the battering of the nations of those fixtures for many a year, to beating the teams, beating your Australia, your New Zealand, South Africa, and being on the brisk of actually winning the tournament, bringing it down to the last couple of weeks. And I do agree they would be one of the top teams going into the World Cup, but obviously I hope
They're
things don't go out that way. Sorry to our South African viewers, but I have to have my green tinted glasses on when it comes to it.
Exactly that. That leaves us with France, and France are just France, aren't they? So they lost 32-17 to the Springboks. They won 34-21 against Fiji, and then did a 48-33 against Australia. Then nothing stands out.
Allez le bleu, that's what I say.
Nothing jumps out, but nothing, like, they've done what they needed to do. They obviously lost to South Africa. South Africa were they down to 14 men again on that game as well? They got 3 reds, or however, I've lost track of. Yeah, they had a red in that.
That's their benchmark for the autumn internationals, isn't it? Really?
Yeah,
they got on against the Springbok.
They played every game with 14 men at some point, I think it was, and then they still won every single one of their games. So
they managed to look like they kept the Springboks at bay for the first 30 minutes, and then obviously Springboks got the red card and decided to put one on them. So that was probably the closest that South Africa got to a rattle. But France aren't an 80-minute team, in my opinion. They haven't been for a very long time.
But I think you've been watching the comeback of World Rugby Player of the Year 2025 or 2024 in Dupont, and he's on his way back, and he's getting back to. It's really hard to recover. And we all said though that was it LeGarrette that played in the Six Nations that finishes off, and it was absolutely, he was class, and questionably possibly fitted into that French team a little bit better. But you lost your leader and your talisman, and from that point, and the French rugby are still going to we keep talking about French rugby. They're going to come good. And eventually they will. And the last World Cup was definitely the best opportunity for them to get into it. And then they've had 2 years where they're kind of sort of, where we're saying, but definitely wouldn't write them off for the Six Nations coming up, in February. And it's hard to gauge when they lose to South Africa just by a smaller margin than everybody else lost to South Africa, and they beat Fiji, which is expected. But if you have a look at the Fiji games that Fiji played in the Six and the Autumn Internationals, they were pretty good. So I think the French are slowly, quietly moving along nicely, and will be a massive force come the Six Nations, and we'll see that passion, that French passion, to come out again.
48-33 against Australia was a bit too close for comfort, though. Like that's probably exploited any French frailties. Thomas Ramos, absolute exceptional kicker, but literally just a human turnstile.
Fire escape in the middle of the pitch,
literally just turns into a fucking armadillo, rolls up every time a tackle comes near him, but can kick for miles. And then you've got a very aging pack. They've never really replaced the front row. They've never really got past Antonio disappearing. I think he come back at the weekend in the top 14 or something like that. So I think he's on his way back, but he must be about 104 now. Like
just young for a prop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's like a baby. But I don't think obviously Dupont is the only miss. I think they've got potentially 2 years left of most of this squad, and similar to what potentially of an Ireland model as well. They don't conveyor belt enough players through at the right time. They kind of get stuck into bits, and like you've still got Marchand playing hooker. Like how old's he now? Like, okay, he's playing in the top 14, but I wouldn't say he's probably the best hooker around. Like,
they've got the depth, haven't they? And they've got the pathways. If you look at their youth setup, how well their under-20s do.
They got Gaultier though. Yeah. Gaultier is just a mentalist, isn't he?
Yeah.
And you've also got to find players that can play the Gaultier way.
Yeah. the Pro 2 league as well. Look at the strength of that league, the second division. It's the strongest second division in the world, isn't it, domestically?
They've definitely got the. I think arguably the strongest. We call it the strongest league in the world, but then you would question, in that case, then that's the reason why they've been so dominant in the European Championships for the last few years, and the Investex Champions Cup, and the French teams are just doing superbly in that, and and even then their league is really competitive, so they're going to breed some good players, and they've got a good balance of basically paying everyone top dollars to come across and play in the country, but yet sort of still be able to promote and build their youth setups and bring those French players through. So, if only some of the other home nations did the same stuff, then maybe that would be a little bit better. Maybe if we had free-to-air TV on a Thursday, Friday and Saturday night, where you could actually watch rugby on free-to-air TV, we might get a few more people playing our sport and actually sort of supporting rugby and being more invested.
The problem is the fixtures as well, though, because like France actually mould the fixtures around their teams. So the top four, the Pro D2 play on a Thursday and Friday night, which is the local regional games. They then on the Saturday daytime they play their local club, and then the top 14 will play on a Saturday night at 8:00. So everyone will get back from their game and go straight to the top 14, or they'll play on a Sunday. So they tailor rugby around the rest of the actual viewing public. That's the difference, and that's how they've got 4 top tiers of rugby. However, they might have managed to get a new player just in time for the World Cup, haven't they? Jack Willis might be actually able to register because of his time in France.
I'm sure I read something the other day that says that it's possibly that someone's managed to poach him back to the UK.
Let's hope so, because I don't want him fucking ending up in it. But the French absolutely love him. They're on about fucking making him the king of France, like down there. Like,
but then, so we don't want that to happen. How do we feel about Van Gisbergen? Is it Van Rensburg, isn't it?
I'll have him. No bias, no Bristol bias at all.
I don't think he's good enough. It's not that
he's one of the best centres in the Prem.
Where do you stand on it, Keith, about foreigners playing for your international team?
Me, I'm all for it. Yeah, we would. I think, look, here, it'd be stupid for me to say anything otherwise. Like, over the last number of years, the best Irish players have been those that have been imported, like the Van der Fleers and the Bundyakis. So look, I'm all for inclusion.
By the way, I didn't say that just for those reasons. I genuinely thought it was. I wasn't trying to goad you. So I think
he was. Yeah.
No, England have been doing it for years as well. Dylan Hartley was a South African. You go back, Mike Catt. There's a whole load of players. The Scotlands were doing it for years, and everyone's done it for years. I think a case of, if you've been capped for another country, though, I think that maybe that's where we should lie. And, I think there are rules.
That's how they
used to. Talking about.
That's how they used to do it.
Because we're talking about
now. Because that's like the Vunipola brothers are paying for Tonga in the World Cup. The whole World Cup. Yeah, we need a whole World Cup episode, because there's a whole with the draw.
Tuolangi playing for Samoa.
There's lots to talk about, and I think that will be a great episode to get in at some point very soon. All in all, I think England probably had the best autumn internationals. Wales didn't, on paper, look fucking terrible, but actually did okay. Scotland probably had the worst, I'd say. Argentina looked like they could be a dark horse. Ireland had a positive one until they got found out by the referee.
That's one way to put it.
All Blacks was pretty dog shit as well. France was France. Italy probably really positive as well. I think All in all, and then South Africa just cunts, didn't they? To be fair, that's probably the easiest way to put that.
I just genuinely think it was a really good autumn internationals. That and I know we're on the podcast, a few weeks after it's happened, but they're still talking about it, and the buzz is still there, and everyone's still having discussions, and we're still now already literally gone from. Right, autumn international finish. Right, it's 4 months to Six Nations, or 3 months to Six Nations. England players are talking about who's going to be ready, who's going to be selected. Was George Ford the best player in the autumn internationals? And it's great, and that's the thing. You want that to be talked about, and you want people to talk about that international level. And we talk about it as well, but we should also really start talking about local rugby. When I mean Premiership rugby and Championship rugby, and and bring that sort of stuff in, because that's where we're lacking, aren't we? International rugby is massively followed and supported. We need to sort of get the other stuff going as well.
It's been really positive though, with ITV managing to get the rights as well. So that's going to be huge to free to air. I think the only downside that I will call out for the autumn internationals was it was on TNT. I don't think the coverage was great. I think it was hard for people to see. I thought I rated it when it was on Amazon because it was easy for people to get. Everyone's got a Prime account. Their wife's normally, or their missus is spending fuckloads of money, so they've already got a Prime account. It's easy to watch rugby. Chuck it on. The gatekeepers again blocked it to the masses, and I think people missed out on a really great round of international rugby.
Yeah, I think 100% with that, Carl, and that's kind of the consensus over here, not just with regarding TV deals, but definitely what is felt like the rugby as why it's been lacking in its popularity over here is how it's being gatekept from the not just grassroots, but say the less well off, the ones that can't pay for your private colleges or pay your massive Sky bills. So to be able to have your Amazon Prime would definitely be a better way of reaching out to get eyes on the products.
I really hope Netflix really take it seriously. They had the opportunity. They dabbled at the Six Nations behind the scenes thing. That didn't work out as well as it should have, but I think there's a chart. Everyone's got Netflix. If there's a way that they can get into it, I think that could really push rugby in another direction as well. On that bombshell, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure, gents. We have obviously plodded on for over an hour to get this one through. Part 2 is done. We have set autumn internationals to rights. I think all in all, it was a very good round of rugby for us internationally to be able to watch, for those that could watch it. And yeah, we then start planning for our World Cup draw podcast, and we start lining up for the Six Nations and fantasy fun again. So for everyone that's joined us, really appreciate your time, especially if you've got all the way through to the end here. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, share it with everyone. If there's any of your favourite points, clip it up. Tell whoever's a wanker. We love to hear anything that you've got to say about it. Share your opinions of it as well. It's always a pleasure for anyone that does actually watch it through. So that's this week's episode of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast complete. And we will hopefully have an international rugby player on our next episode. So thank you and goodbye.